Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to have this interview with you. As you said, we have had the presidency for the third time, and it was our ambition to use the presidency to work in the interest of the European Union. For us, having the presidency means taking on additional responsibility to work for the unity and the strengthening of the European Union. And that has been the same in 1998, during our first presidency, in 2006, during our second presidency, and also now. Having the presidency also means that you lead a lot of processes. As you know, the decision-making process in the European Union can be quite complex sometimes, and it requires the presidency to lead this process and to find compromises, and I would say that we are quite satisfied with the way it went during our presidency, and we were able to reach some quite important compromises. One of the biggest challenges this time was, of course, the Brexit issue. For the first time in the history of the European Union, a member state has decided to leave the Union, which is a very difficult process, and as a presidency, it was our goal to manage and accompany this process in the best possible manner. We wanted to keep the unity of the EU 27 in order to support the best possible way also our negotiator Michel Barnier. And we achieved this, and we also concluded the withdrawal agreement, or endorsed the withdrawal agreement in November, which in our view is very good, or the best possible deal for both sides that was achievable. The other challenges that we tried to address was one, and I think we are quite happy with how we could advance the agenda on the fight against illegal migration. We were able to take up the proposal of the European Commission to strengthen our external borders and to strengthen the mandate of Frontex with regard to how they can cooperate with third countries and also in as far as they can cooperate with returns to third countries. We were also interested in pushing the agenda of competitiveness and the digital agenda, and I think also there a number of issues were achieved, and with regards to the single digital market. And last but not least, and this is from my perspective the most important issue, we had a very strong focus on the stability in Southeastern Europe, in the Western Balkans, and also to see that there will be concrete advances on the EU accession processes. Let me start by quoting my Chancellor Sebastian Kurz, and also our Foreign Minister Karin Kneißl. Both have repeatedly said that the European Union is incomplete without the countries of the Western Balkans. And by that, we really mean that we have a genuine interest as the EU, but also as Austria, to enlarge the European Union by these countries. And I think 2018 has been a very good year in this regard, starting from the Commission strategy in the beginning of the year, but also high-level visits of President Juncker, President Tusk, the Sofia summit during the Bulgarian presidency, and also then during our presidency. There was a clear focus by the European Union on advancing the enlargement agenda, and I think this is very positive. We have an interest to enlarge because for us it is clear that this provides stability in the region. It will also provide prosperity for the countries of the region, for its citizens, but of course there's also an economic interest from our companies to see this part of Europe prosper. So I'm an optimist. I think the glass is half full. and I think Serbia is on a good progress, on a good way, and we will, as Austria, continue to strongly support this enlargement process. First of all, having the elections to the European Parliament, I think, is a very positive thing and also a very normal part of our democracy in Europe and of our democratic processes. It will also provide an opportunity to launch a public discourse about the future of Europe, where should Europe go, and what are its priorities. From the perspective of enlargement, I would not put too much emphasis on the elections of the European Parliament. For one, the European Commission will continue working until the autumn of this year, but also because the policies as they regard the enlargement process, they have been determined in the Council of the European Union by the member states, and this will continue to be valid also after the elections. So I think the driving force in this regard is also are its member states. So I would not be too concerned about that. We as Austrians are very supportive, as I've already said, and we will also continue to advocate for the enlargement process also after the elections. Serbia has now opened 16 chapters, and I think this is very good. It means that Serbia has already opened more than 50% of all the chapters. It reflects steady progress, and the opening of 2 chapters during the Austrian presidency was also a clear recognition of reform efforts that are underway in Serbia. I think it is clear, and the European Union has been also very clear on this, that further reform efforts are needed, in particular in the core issues of the so-called Chapter 23 and 24, which means the rule of law, justice reform, fight against corruption, fight against organized crime. I think progress on these core issues will be very, very, very important for the further progress in the EU accession negotiations. We as Austrians support Serbia in many ways. In concrete, the twinning projects, we are having finalizing one on, for example, the reforms of the prison system here. We are also working on the fight against smuggling and trafficking in human beings. So there are many issues where we work in very concrete terms, but what we also do and will continue to do is provide very close political support. During our presidency, I was very happy to see that we had many high-level political visits from our president, from the speaker of our parliament, from the federal chancellor, which underscored, and they wanted to underscore, the Austrian interest in Serbia, in the development of Serbia, in its EU accession process, and this political support will certainly continue. Clearly, in order to advance on the EU accession process, we also will need to see progress in the dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina. When Federal Chancellor Sebastian Kurz was here in November last year, he also stated very clearly that Serbia has to be aware that in order to join the European Union, there will have to be a comprehensive agreement on the normalization of its relations with Pristina. The European Union is facilitating the dialogue, and we as Austrians are very supportive of this facilitation process. But also it is clear that the drivers of the dialogue are the 2 sides, Belgrade and Pristina. So I think we will and are offering our support. We're in close contact, and we also recognize the ambition and commitment of President Vučić and the Serbian government in coming to a conclusion on this dialogue issue. First of all, thank you. You're right. We have a very good economic partnership. Our trade volume is already more than 1 billion. It has been going up over the last years. We have been for a long time one of the largest investors in this country, and we'll hope that this will continue in the future. We are very strong, I would say, in the services industry. So when you think about banking, insurance companies, there's a strong presence of Austria in Serbia. I think there's a lot of interest to increase also our cooperation in the manufacturing sector. When President van der Bellen paid his official visit to Serbia in November last year, we organized a business forum with regard to infrastructure, and I noted that there was a great interest by Austrian companies to be more active in this field, and I think this is a sector where we can see further, or hope to see further improvement. And one other aspect which I would like to highlight, which is I think a very positive example of our concrete cooperation, is our support for Serbia in developing a system of dual education, which I think is a very effective system to increase employability, to decrease unemployment, in particular as regards youth unemployment. And this cooperation will continue also in the future.